welcome from my behalf as well, and it's really nice today to talk to you about using external controls in CTs. So today I will be first talking about our project where we investigated the possibilities of data science in clinical trials called future clinical trials. And then I will continue about specifics, details about external controls. And last thing would be a specific use case, pediatric stroke. So what did we do? So we had a project. It lasted 4 years. It's actually started 2020 and 24 now. It will be the final. We will be finalizing the project. And how we built it, we had a lot of companies who we worked with, also MedEngine and others, and we did like scientific research and also practical implementation to clinical trials. How we can use real-world data, how we can use AI to support our processes in the pharma R&D. I worked in data science work stream. I was leading that, and basically our focus point was the secondary use of data, which is really developed here in Finland, using external controls and doing data-driven de-risking to trials, and also investigating new trial designs. And this is the timeline of the project, which you can see now. So we basically started our activities in 2020, doing the pilot external control arm together with MedEngine and Veil AI companies. That was in the therapeutic area of atrial fibrillation. And then we continued doing more topics under that, including AI development together with Aalto University, anonymization activities with Veil AI, and data quality activities with a company called Droiz Labs. Then we have other activities, including how we could optimize clinical trials and so forth. Our main leading principle was from the beginning to create shared value with our stakeholders. And here you can see this one setup we had with Helsinki University Hospital and Finnish Center for AI. And from this collaboration, we have published multiple articles. And also through this collaboration, we continued to this use case, pediatric stroke, which I will be discussing later today. So going to this topic of considerations regarding external control arms. We basically had two different approaches to external control arms. One is the synthetic controls, which is the common way. Basically, you want to match your treatment group in your trial with this synthetic control group, which can come from the real-world data or actually also from legacy clinical trials, like previous trials that you have collected. Then the other option would be to create models which predict with the actual patient data how the participants in the treatment group would have, what would happen to them if they would be only under the standard of care. So basically, we were focusing on the synthetic controls. So now, what are these kind of considerations we have to look at? So there's I think three main categories. One is how suitable this let's say trial or the project is for external control arms. The second one is the feasibility check. Do we actually have data to do this? And the third really important part is how we interact with the regulators who actually make the decisions. So under suitability, really, we know that the most common use cases are in rare disease, patients who have limited options in their therapeutics, and also very life-threatening diseases. And then there's other factors as well. And the feasibility is really important, and this is what we have done a lot now also in the Finnish ecosystem, is to identify good data sources, also identify the linkage possibilities in the data, and the sample size, of course, is really important. Then the third, with this engagement with health authorities, the early and frequent consultations is the main take-home message. So you should be in contact with the regulators as early as possible when you plan to have an external control arm in your trial. So what else is there? So basically, what is an external control arm? So basically what we want to do is we want to replace or augment a control arm with external data. And here you can see in this setup that what happens with the data is that in a normal setup, you collect data from sites. And that's the standard way of collecting, and the regulator and the company knows all the steps between getting the data to the end of the pipeline and submission to the FDA or EMA or some other health authority. When you work with real-world data, the problem is that you don't actually have an access to the source, meaning hospitals. So there is a little bit like more uncertainty in the data. And what we also wanted to tackle with our project is that how we could actually implement traceability to real-world data. And this is an enabler maybe in the future how we could actually create similar kind of data from real-world data that we generate today with clinical trials. But this is kind of more maybe the future prospects. And here the target is to also do external control arms beyond the rare disease indications. And just as a kind of example, I won't go deep to these slides, but what happens is like these data, let's say lakes or the hospital data sources are really complex and can have thousands of tables, and there can easily happen information loss. And this is a problem which there is not yet really, let's say, good solutions. And this is something we want to develop together with companies like Troyes Labs. So then I want to go to the case example. So we initiated a project together with Helsinki University Hospital and Aalto University in this topic of stroke, acute ischemic stroke in children, and the team you can see in the slide on the right. So we had pediatricians from Helsinki University Hospital and colleagues from their information services. And our objective was really to, let's say, investigate the natural history of the disease, to do deep characterization of the patients, and also evaluate let's say, the incidence and the number of these patients in Finland, and especially in the Helsinki area, of course. And the final, let's say, objective was really to understand, would it be possible to use this data for an external control arm in our clinical trial? And what we kind of observed or what we investigated from the data was patient count and incidence, how heterogeneous the population is, because that affects greatly the, let's say, the level of difficulty of implementing external control arm is how heterogeneous the population is. How complete the data is, that's also important, and the validation. So that's really common need, especially for the important variables like outcomes or endpoints in the trial that the regulators ask for validation. And the methods of validation usually is to go to do a deep validation with text, like clinical narrative data, or then with imaging data. So that they are like two examples. We focused on specific variables like index data that can be really difficult to define in this case as well. What are the data elements that define the etiology of the stroke? What are the symptoms? What is the symptom representation, and also the different treatment patterns in the population, and also, of course, the outcomes. And what the outputs will be, we are currently underway of publishing an article about the process here. We also worked implementing models, AI models for doing, like, let's say, more efficient way of using narrative text to do these specifications. And also we want to create reusable tools that we could do these things better in the HUS environment and the Finnish data ecosystem. So here, an example of the complexities here, that how we actually define the patient population. So I won't now explain everything here, but basically just showing that like it's not really easy to define your when you're in this kind of a rare disease indication. So you have to go multiple steps, validations, using imaging data, using clinical narrative data to define the patients who are actual in your cohort, and also exclude those patients who are not really have the disease. So there could be wrong diagnosis codes. There could be patients who are actually diagnosed in a different hospital but moved to this hospital, and so forth. So it's a complex process, but we can see here that in this left box, which is the acute ischemic stroke diagnosis code, that from the 172 patients, we ended up with 111. So approximately 1/3 dropped out in the process. And the index date basically changed in half of the patients, so after the validation. So there is a considerable effect in having this deep data access as we had with the Helsinki University Hospital. So this was my presentation, and thank you for your interest, and I'm open for questions.